But back then Kubernetes wasn't like necessarily dominant to win, right? Like in those like days, there was also like Docker Swarm and Mesos, and like everyone, maybe even Nomad a bit later. So did you know that Kubernetes is going to win? What did you like about Kubernetes back in the day?
Yeah, so definitely there was other things. So Docker, Docker, the company, right away they also acknowledged that they were going to need something to run multiple containers in production. That gave rise to Docker Swarm. There was Mesos, which was there, even before. So there was a framework to run containers. I think Marathon, something like this. In
Yeah,
Mesos.
there was.
Marathon. And then later Nomad, the folks who started Rancher, they started with their own orchestrator, which was called Cattle, right? So of course there were lots of other options. For me really what made it is that I felt Kubernetes was easy to use, and I know we can argue about this, but I felt like the API, right, that Kubernetes gave you was easy to understand. It was a very clean, I always use this term, clean REST API, right? So it was a very clean REST API. At the time, you have to remember, it was kind of compared to like Amazon APIs, which were query-based. It was not really a very clean REST API. Suddenly you had, a very clean API that you could program, with in whatever language, right? Of course, at the time, there was no Python client or there was no very robust client, but at least you had a very nice API. The construct of, at the time, it was a replication controller, right? An RC, there was no deployment. So the replication controller was very nice to be able to control the number of replicas.
Yeah.
When your containers were failing, automatically you had this concept of a reconciliation loop, right? So there was something watching over the pods that would restart things. So there were really lots of very nice base constructs that were extremely powerful that I didn't find in Swarm, especially the first one, and then the second one got even more complex. But that's why I was like, hey, Kubernetes is the thing. So I went for it. I didn't know it was going to be that big, of course, right? And but